and then hopefully get to all of the questions that you might have with whatever time remains. So, welcome to the Evergreen Prior Authorization Training Session. I'm sure all of you know me at this point, but if there's anybody on the training who has not met me yet, my name is Leslie Miska, and I'm the Office of Aging and Disability Services Information Services Manager. And I'll be leading today's training session. However, I saw that Emily Kalifarsky is on the call, and I believe Elizabeth Harding will also be joining us. Um, Emily is the ODES Resource Development Manager, and Liz is the Brain Injury Waiver Program Specialist. And I may call on them to help me respond to some of your questions as they come in throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. Participants have been added to this training session in listener mode, therefore your line is muted. So we ask that you type your questions into the Q&A. You should see a Q&A icon on your Zoom window menu. Depending on the size of your screen, it might be hidden under the three little ellipses that has more menu options. But definitely open up that Q&A icon, and then that way throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those right into that Q&A chat channel or that Q&A channel. And at the end of the presentation, I will certainly answer as many questions as we have time for. Next slide, please. During today's training session, we will cover the following topics: new features in Evergreen, person record forms, person-centered plan state review, prior authorization approval, and filtered throughout the presentation will be topics related to PA notifications and queries. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Prior to this training, you should have watched the Evergreen microlearning videos. These brief videos are available on the Evergreen project website at maine.gov/dhhs/EIS/Evergreen. The videos provide trainings on the following topics: search, which is an introduction to Evergreen and how the search process works for person, staff, locations, and organizations. Then there's microlearning on dashboards. There are two different dashboards in Evergreen. There's one for you as the user, which is called the My Dashboard. And then there's one for the person record itself, which is referred to as the person dashboard. There's also a microlearning on the person record itself, which is where we capture all the demographic and personal information about the individuals that we serve. There's one for health information, which is a comprehensive collection of information such as allergies, treatments, medications, diagnoses, etc. There's one specifically to queries and notifications, which are tools that will help you manage your outstanding work items or actions in the system. There's microlearning on progress notes, which is where you'll document free-form notes or case notes related to the person records themselves. There's a microlearning related to attachments, which is a feature that allows you to upload important documents to the person's record in Evergreen. So please note that we will not be covering all of the details related to these topics during today's training session. So if you have not yet listened to the microlearning videos, you will want to go out and take some time to listen to those. Or if you just like to re-listen to them as a refresher, you certainly can do that as well. Next slide, please. In case you haven't participated in a training session yet, I did want to share this important aspect of the Evergreen system. Evergreen is a shared system, so it is configured in two sort of separate sides of the system. One side is referred to as Evergreen, and that's where the person record is contained, and that's where all of our ODES EIS functionality will migrate into. And then on the other side of the system is the Adult Protective Services program functionality, and where we capture adult protective services reports. So they are distinct and separate sides of the system, and secure and access is controlled based on that. But the two sides of the system do share the same person record. So it's important for you to understand that adult protective services and public guardianship conservatorship representatives will also have access to view the person record and most of the data that's contained within there. And they may also, depending on their role, have the ability to edit some of the person details like demographic data and et cetera, those types of things. Next slide, please. Some of the benefits of Evergreen include the fact that main care waiver organizations and person records will be created off of MIMS data and or linked to MIMS records. ODE's information services team will also have the ability to add and edit services directly in the Evergreen system without having to wait for our vendor FEI to make those changes. Prior authorizations will use the MIMS rate tables instead of Evergreen doing the pricing for PAs like has happened in the past in EIS. So this will make rate changes a much smoother process. So although we'll be using the MIMS rate tables to apply the rate for a prior authorization over in the MIMS system itself, we do need to keep the rates updated directly in Evergreen so that you as a user, a resource coordinator, BI care coordinator, BI care monitor, or like a community case manager, other users of the system, BI care coordinators, will still be able to see the rates and see how it calculates. So there still is a component of keeping those up to date in Evergreen just so that you can see the current rate and how it calculates on the units that are being requested. But when we send the prior authorizations over to MIMS, we won't include the rate or the pricing information. We'll just include the units that are being requested, and MIMS will apply the rate directly in their system. So that is a pretty significant shift for us in as it relates to prior authorizations. However, that's how MeCare works currently, and that's how FEI does prior authorizations with most of their clients as well. The PA form itself is different than the EIS prior auth form in the sense that there are some additional data fields that you'll be able to see. And in fact, it will show the units that were requested versus the units that were authorized by you as the resource coordinator or care monitor. PAs that are expanded. So if you're familiar with that terminology, there's in EIS, there's a concept of a single PA or an expanded PA. A single PA means that the PA has a start date and an end date, and the units are available to be used anytime between that start and end date. Where an expanded PA means that the PA itself might have a start date and an end date, like a year, January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024. But the units are equally distributed across like each month. A good example of that in EIS would be like assistive technology transmission. Usually that's an expanded PA and the units are applied each month. So in EIS, you just see the one PA, you see the date range, you see the total, and depending on how it's configured in the system, it will break it out into those monthly increments in the MIMS system. In Evergreen, you'll actually see the breakout directly in the system. So if it's a monthly service that's going to be distributed across 12 units distributed across 12 months, you'll see 12 service lines right in the PA, and you'll see the units applied to each one. If it's one of the services that we currently do rollover for, and we or re-ups, however you're familiar with that terminology, In Evergreen, it will show as a full year PA instead of the 6-month PA, and it will break it out into 2 service lines, 1 for each of the 6-month increments, and then you'll have the units applied equally to each 6-month service line. So that's a pretty big shift, and we'll look at that a little bit closer as we go forward, but very exciting that you'll be able to see that just the same way that's going to show up in MIMS for the provider that's doing the claims. Evergreen also has the ability for the resource coordinator or care monitor to send a request for clarification to the case manager or care coordinator when you're reviewing the PA and preparing to authorize that. The PA form also checks against the MIMS data to ensure that there is an active location enrollment for the location that you're trying to submit the PA for, and also that the person has active program eligibility. So they're actively assigned to the waiver that you're trying to submit the PA for. And that's just to make sure it's considered or called a pre-submittal error. And that's to make sure that when you submit the PA, it's not going to error on the MIMS side. So these are errors that you'll see in the PA module itself when you're trying to set the PA to submit if one or both of those items is not currently active in the MIMS database. And then you need to, work with MIMS or someone to get that information updated in the MIMS system so that that PA can flow over correctly. There is also a MIMS nightly PA process that will pick up PAs that you've set to submit to MIMS and send those across. And it will also, that same process will return a file with the results indicating whether each PA line item was processed or errored. And then the status of that will be displayed right within the PA itself. So some additional data points that you'll be able to see right on the Evergreen user interface. In addition to the MIMS processing outcome, you'll also be able to see the utilization data for each of the PAs. So in a separate nightly process, Evergreen will consume MIMS prior authorization publication data or pub data, and that will indicate how many units were used for each of the prior authorizations that was submitted from the Evergreen system. And that information will be updated directly in the user interface at the PA level. And lastly, but certainly not least, is that Evergreen will automatically generate notifications when certain actions occur in the system or form workflow statuses change, so that the resource coordinator care monitor will know when PCP requires state review or PAs were rejected by MIMS or a classification packet has been submitted for review. Other things that your role might need to be notified about. Also, in addition to notifications, you as resource coordinators, care monitors have specific queries that you can run to determine what outstanding actionable items you might have. So for example, each day you'll probably want to run your query for all prior authorizations to determine what prior authorizations require your review. Similarly, your supervisor might want to run that query daily to ensure that there are no prior authorizations requiring their supervisor review and approval. Next slide, please. My dashboard is the first page that you as a system user or staff member will see upon logging in. My dashboard showcases the persistent navigation, which is the white navigation bar at the top of the screen. And in that is your search, keyword search bar and related search icons. And then below that persistent navigation are your user dashboard tiles, the My Dashboard tiles. As a resource coordinator or BI care monitor, your tiles will look like what you're seeing here on the screen. You'll have the announcements tile on the left, the one with the orange background. This is a tile that all system users have, and this is where FEI will post notices of planned system outages, if we're having some sort of scheduled maintenance or upcoming office closures possibly, or other relevant information that all system users should be aware of. And then in the middle is the messages tile. This is a feature in Evergreen that's similar to email. You can definitely listen to the micro learning to learn more about the messages tile and how to use it, but essentially you can communicate with any other Evergreen system user, and it's all contained right within Evergreen itself. And then the tile to the far right is the My Notes tile, and this is a feature that's similar to like sticky notes or Notepad or something like that you might have used on your smartphone device or tablet. And this will allow you to just capture notes quickly from either this dashboard or also anywhere within the system, and it will store that for you under your staff profile. And you can, depending on your role, if you have the ability to create progress notes under person records, you can promote those to person progress notes if you have that access. Next slide, please. So in Evergreen, or I think as everybody knows, Evergreen is a person-centric system. This means that most things are completed within the context of a person. Not everything, but almost everything is completed once you've navigated to a person record. So as a resource coordinator or a care monitor, you have the ability to search and navigate to individual person records within the system. Once you're inside of a person record, you can view the contents of that record, including their forms and plans. Next slide, please. In Evergreen, prior authorizations are considered forms, so they can be found by clicking on the forms and plans icon. This is different than in EIS. We do have a separate module in the EIS system that's specific to prior authorizations. But in Evergreen, you'll find the prior authorizations under the forms and plans icon. So you can see when I took this screenshot, I was clicked into the forms and plans. Miranda's showing you that I've circled it in this screenshot here, and the background was white because I was clicked into that. So when you click on that icon, it takes you to what's called the all forms list page. That's what you're seeing in the central portion of this screenshot. This is a list of all of the forms and plans that have been conducted under my test person, which is Leslie Test here. You can sort, filter to get to prior authorizations. You can see that there are a few in the center of the screenshot here from this page. However, it's strongly recommended for you as resource coordinators and care monitors to use the little filter icon in the upper right-hand portion of the screen that Miranda's circling for you right now, the little upside down pyramid hamburger. And that opens up your forms filter. And from here, you'll want to scroll down and click on the prior authorizations. This is going to bring you to the custom prior authorization list page. Next slide, please. So this screenshot shows you the custom PA list page or prior authorization list page. It's recommended that you come here because this list page has additional columns of data which are not present on the all forms list page, and it will make it much easier for you, again, as a resource coordinator or a care monitor, to locate the specific prior authorization that you're wanting to navigate to and view. So you can see I've circled in the header bar the columns of program, PA number, provider, NPI +3, service name, procedure code, and then the modifiers, start date and end date. So these are all columns of data that don't exist on your all forms list page. And so because they don't exist there, you can't search, you can't keyword search on, like, for example, a PA number or a service name. You can't search in the all forms list search bar in the upper right of that page and get these results to return. But from here, you could actually use that little search bar and you could type in like a PA number and hit enter, and it would return results that include that PA number or a specific service name like work support or a procedure code like H2023. And it will just narrow your results to just the PAs with those um, matching keywords. So definitely going to be easier for you from this page to find the PAs that you are looking for. I also, in this screenshot, have expanded what's called the drawer for the first row that was in this table. So you can see I use that little caret icon to the right, and I clicked it and it opened up this extra drawer that's showing below there. That gives me a few additional fields of data. It shows me the date that this PA was created, who created it, and then it also shows me the total authorized units and the total authorized cost for this PA. So again, some additional pieces of information that are available from this list page, which will be helpful to you. New PAs will generally be auto-created by the system via the person-centered planning process, which we'll discuss a little bit further on in this presentation. However, as a resource coordinator or a care monitor, you do have the ability to create a new PA outside of that process in emergent or crisis situations. So, something has to be created right away and it can't wait for a person's planning process to occur. You can come here, use your plus new form button, which I've circled in the upper left of this screenshot, and that will open up the create form modal. And from there, you would select the prior authorization form under the service authorizations category. Next slide, please. And from here, I'm going to try to steal the screen share. Bear with me. This is going to take me just a minute. Need to do a little rearranging here. It's too many options. Oh, nope, that's not what I mean. Hang on, sorry about that. Okay, fine. Hopefully it worked. And now I can get my notes back here. Sorry, guys. All right, I'm going to log in as if I were a resource coordinator. Oops, sorry. Not what I was trying to do. There we go. And I am logging into our test environment, so please bear with me. It might be a little bit slow. We might run into a couple of hiccups here, but hopefully nothing too serious. And let me do a search here. So As a resource coordinator, you do have the ability to search for multiple different things, persons, locations, organizations, staff members. Um, but it will default to person. So it will always be searching for a person that we serve unless you change that. So I'm going to search for my test record, Leslie Test. You can put whatever keywords you want into this search bar, and it acts as an at plus, like an and. So if I just put Leslie, it's going to give me all results that include Leslie in any of these columns that you see here. If I put Leslie Test, it's going to filter that down to just the records that have both Leslie and Test. So you can see I still have two. But this is the one I want. So then once I see the result I want, I can just click on that and it will navigate me to the person record itself. From here, I just wanted to be able to show you how you can find the PA form like we just discussed in the slides. So your primary navigation for this person record, we're in the context of Leslie Test now, and your primary navigation is over here on the left. It's this green bar. You come in to Leslie's dashboard, and this is where you can see all the person dashboard icons for Leslie, notifications, schedule, my tasks. You can see her summary, which has all of the critical information, all of her record or demographic data, health information, which has her diagnoses, treatments, things like that. History, progress notes, attachments, if there's any attachments on her record that you might need to look at, assignments, who are actively assigned her, staff assignments. And then down here towards the bottom is where your forms and plans icon is. Once you click on that, again, you're at the all forms list page. So you can see here that I have a variety of different form types. I can sort and it will do ascending order by form type name or descending order. So I can get like all my PAs together here, but it's still difficult to determine what prior authorization this is because I don't have any of those extra details. So if I if I search like here, for example, H 2023, it's not going to give me any PAs that have that because that data doesn't exist there. But if I open my little filter icon and I go to prior authorizations, now I can see all those details and I could do H 2023 up here and it's narrowing my results just to PAs that are that procedure code. Or I could do home and it's going to give me ones that just have home in the service name. Or I could put in an actual LCS. I think that's the right number. Yeah, and then I can do that and it will return the result for just that PA number that I typed in there. So going to be very handy for you to come here in order to search for a prior authorization that you're looking for. You can also sort in here as well. So you can sort by service name and it will group everything by that service name or by procedure code. And you can ascending, descending, same way. You can sort by date, you can sort by program. So like if this person happened to have been on section 21, 29 before, you can do it that way. You can also create your new PA from here. So again, this should only need to be done in like emergent type service, a crisis or emergent type situations. Most of your PAs should just auto create off of the person center plan itself. But you would select service authorizations, you would select prior authorization here, and then you'd hit next, and you'd indicate which program that you want to do this for, and then you would populate this information. You pick your service. You can do it, you can keyword search by the name of the service or by the procedure code, whatever you feel the most comfortable with. And then in order to select that service, you use this little plus link And then it will, show you the one that you've selected here, and then you go and find the provider that you want to add. If I could type. Um, and then you just find let's not do that. You find the corresponding provider that you want to select. Again, you can search on their name, you could search on their NPI number, you could search on like a part of their address. I mean, any of the stuff that's in here should return your provider. And then you just, again, use this plus link and it will link that person up here and it'll show their NPI. You can see in this test system, we don't have a +3 on there, but normally there'd be a +3. We don't have an address. Normally there'd be an address as well. And then you just hit save and it will, I've selected a bad provider here, but it would then create that prior authorization form for you to fill out. I am going to give the screen share back to Miranda. Rearrange things just slightly and get back to my notes here. The Evergreen person-centered planning process includes a state review workflow. Next slide, please. After the planning team meeting has been held and the PCP has been populated, including the waiver services, the community case manager or BI care coordinator will move the PCP into the state review workflow status. This will trigger the system to generate a notification to users with the resource coordinator or BI care monitor role that there is a PCP which requires state review. So you can see here in my screenshot, I'm clicked into the notifications module. I circled notifications up on your persistent navigation. You can always get to notifications from wherever you are in the system because it will be right there on that white persistent navigation for you at the top. Once you click on it, it will bring you to notifications and you'll see all of your notifications. In this example, I added some search criteria for Leslie Test. I wanted to specifically find my notifications related to person Leslie Test. And it is giving me here at the top in the first row, it's giving me a notification for person record Leslie Test related to person-centered plan. And the subject is state review is required. In this example, I've also opened up the drawer so you can see the message. It does say PCP ID for person ID, and it gives me those ID numbers is pending state review. And you can also see under here that this is a group notification. These notifications are set up as group notifications, again, meaning that all users will, with a particular role, will receive that notification. So in this case, for a developmental disabilities person-centered plan, all resource coordinators would receive this notification. So the user who is going to complete the review should check the box next to the row that they're going to be reviewing, completing the state review for, and then click this accept button, which I've circled in the upper left-hand corner. What that will do is it will then apply your name to this notification as the reviewer so that other resource coordinators will know that, or I'm sorry, it would say accepted by. It will add your name to the accepted by column. And then that way, other resource coordinators or care monitors would know that you are going to be completing or you're working to complete that review. Now, please note that waiver services can also be updated through a PCP revision and a PCP type change. So that's going to come in as a different subject, which I've circled down a little bit further in the screenshot. that one will come in with the subject line of change in waiver services review required. So if it's a annual planning process and or a planning process that's at the state review portion, it will come in with that subject. If it's a revised PCP that they're changing waiver services and you need to modify existing PAs, it will come in with that change in waiver services review required subject. If it comes in with that change in waiver services review required, this means again that the CCM or the care coordinator has revised the PCP as a change type, and they will fill out the change in waiver services section of the plan to provide you the details of what they have changed for waiver services, and then move it into the pending state review status. That would then trigger the notification, and you would then be able to review that and then go find your corresponding PAs to update to reflect the changes that were made there and approved by you there. Next slide. After navigating into the person-centered plan from the notification and reviewing the plan, so you'll be able to just click on the notification row that you want to navigate to. You'll be able to then scroll through and view all sections of the PCP that have been populated. And so after you've done that and you've reviewed the plan, including the services and support section, and specifically the waiver services and the units that are being requested, you as the resource coordinator care monitor would then put the plan into edit mode, open up your quick scroll menu using the little toggle icon in the upper right, and click on the state review submenu item, which Miranda's showing you that I've circled there. This will then bring you directly to the state review section of the person-centered plan. From here, you can indicate your approval. So you can say yes or no. If you accidentally click on yes or no, but you aren't technically ready to answer that question, you can use the little clear button to the right to clear a radio button so that you don't have to make a selection one way or the other. But if you're ready, you can select yes or no. So a yes is saying that you're approving the waiver services as requested in the plan, and no is saying that you are denying or not approving the waiver services that are added to the plan. And then you can also add any comments that you want to add as the reviewer here, and then it will automatically apply a date stamp of the date that you answer these questions as the approval date. Now, if you do have questions and you're not ready to approve, you can communicate with the assigned case manager or care coordinator outside of the PCP form itself. So you'll probably want to use the little messages feature, again, available from your persistent navigation. You can use the messages. You can find the assigned case manager or care coordinator in the to field and send them a message, indicating what you need for additional information or clarification in order to make a decision one way or another, yes or no, and add your comment here. But once you're ready, you go ahead and fill out these fields and make sure that you hit save or save and next, but you don't have any other pages that you need to populate here, but make sure you hit save. If you don't hit save, it will not commit that when you change the workflow status. So it is important, very, very important, that if you edit anything in any form, you always hit save or save and next before doing anything else. So in this case, you'll hit save, and then you can use the status dropdown, which I've circled in the kind of top center here, and you'll be able to submit for provider selection. This will move the PCP into the next status, and it will trigger the notification back to the assigned case manager or care coordinator, letting them know that it's ready for your review and approval now. I'm sorry, for their provider selection now. And please note also that all PCPs will need to go through the state review process, regardless of whether they include any waiver services. This is something that we hope to change in the future as an enhancement down the road. But the way that we designed the system is that the PCP has 4 workflow statuses, and so it will always go into the pending state review workflow, no matter whether it's a Section 13 plan, 21, 29, 18, and or whether there's any waiver services attached. So I have discussed this with Emily, and we'll be working out a plan for some resources to support just moving those that don't truly require a review and approval of waiver services more quickly back to provider selection, which in that case is likely also sort of a strange workflow status. But then the community case manager or care coordinator can move it right past that to plan complete if they're ready. Next slide, please. Once the person has selected their providers, approved the SIPs, and signed the plan, the community case manager or care coordinator will then set the PCP to completed. This will trigger the system to auto create the prior authorizations. Next slide, please. System generated PAs will need to be approved by the resource coordinator's care monitors in order to flow over to MIMS. Resource coordinators or care monitors should use the all prior auths query to filter down to the PAs requiring approval each day. So queries is another one of those features that's available from your persistent navigation. So you'll just, in the top white bar there, you'll just click on the queries icon. This will bring you to the queries page. From here, you will have multiple queries that you can run. So you'll use the little filter icon, which is that upside down pyramid in the far right of the upper central content area. And you'll select the all prior authorizations query. And then it will give you some filter options. And in the filter options, you'll want to, if you want to see the ones that are just requiring state review, you'll want to choose the status of pending review. And then depending on your role or what programs you're looking for, you might want to filter down to Section 21 and or 29 or 18. And then when you run the query, it will give you results based on the filters that you've entered there. So in this example, I had selected the all prior authorization query. I'd selected programs of 21 and 29, and I'd selected a status of pending review. And so it gave me 380 results. Again, this is our test environment. Nobody's actually keeping up with the work in here, so it looks a little daunting. But even so, no matter how many results that you get in your query, you can export what you're seeing in this table. So you can use the little icon in the navigation menu in the top middle to go ahead and select export, and that will export a spreadsheet of results for you. From there, that spreadsheet can be used to further filter, sort, organize your outstanding work by provider and or person, however you might want to tackle the review and approval of your PAs. Next slide, please. To approve a prior authorization, the resource coordinator or care monitor should navigate to the corresponding person record, click on the forms and plans icon, and then use the filter icon to get to the custom PA list page, which we already reviewed earlier in this presentation. From here, you can search by any of those columns that we discussed: PA number, service name, proc code, but basically you want to locate the PA that you're trying to do the review and approval of. Then you're going to click on the row to open the PA and complete your review and approval. Once inside the prior authorization form, which is where this screenshot was taken from, You can use the caret icon to the left of each section header to expand them manually one at a time, or you can use the expand all button, which I've circled in the upper menu under the prior authorization form header to expand all of them at the same time. As with any other form in Evergreen, you can also use your quick scroll menu. So you can use the little toggle icon to the upper right and open the quick scroll, and then click on whichever section you want to navigate to, and the system will take you right there. In this case, because we're discussing PAs that were auto-generated by the PCP, the first three sections, actually all four sections of the prior authorization form will have already been populated by the system from the content that was in the PCP itself. So the overview, provider information, original request, and the service information section will all auto-populate. As the resource coordinator, you would need to go down to the service information section to complete your approval and navigate into each of the service lines to complete your review and authorization. So in this example, this service auto-created two service lines, kind of like what I discussed or indicated at the beginning of the presentation, is that this is likely one of the services that we currently do rollover or re-up for. So we typically only authorize for 6 months at a time. But in Evergreen, we are going to be aligning PAs and PA dates to the person-centered plan effective dates, and we'll be authorizing the services for the full year. However, we'll be doing it in 2 6-month increments so that the units can be distributed similarly to the way that they're currently being distributed in 2 6-month increments or periods in MIMS. So this person-centered plan had this service. The service went for the full plan year. And because of the way it was defined in our Evergreen system, it automatically created this as 2 separate 6-month PA service lines. You would click on the first caret and go into that one, do your review and approval, and then click on the second caret, come back here, click on the second caret, go in and do your review and approval. So you do have to review and approve each service line for that line to flow over to MIMS. Next slide, please. Upon clicking into a service line, the system will bring you to the service details page, which is where I took this screenshot from. Similar to the prior authorization page, you can use the caret icon on the left of each section header to expand them manually one at a time, or you can use the expand all button to open them all up at the same time. As with any form in Evergreen, you also have your quick scroll menu on the right, and you can click on any sections to take you right there without having to scroll. And the service information and the requested service fields of the authorization information sections will already be populated for you. Those have come from the service information on the previous screen. To authorize the units, you'll use the right-facing caret in between the requested service details and the authorized service details. So I've circled that. It's at the center bottom of this screenshot, kind of grayed out behind, because when I took the screenshot, I had already opened to edit the authorized service. But that little caret is magic. What that does is it will take all of the data that was populated in the requested services field, and it will automatically copy it into the authorized services field. That way you don't have to manually key all that data again. And then you can click to edit the authorized service data. And so it will already be pre-populated, and you can make whatever adjustments you might need to make from here, rather than having to rekey everything to match it. You can authorize the units just as they were requested. So you can leave it alone. Like if you don't need to make any changes, you can just use that caret, copy it over, and then put your decision in. If you need to edit it, like you don't want to authorize all of the units that were requested, but you might want to authorize fewer units, you can click to edit. It will open up this modal, and then you can modify the units here. I've circled units in this example. and then hit save, and it will save under the authorized section just the number of units that you want to authorize here. This is also the modal where like PPRO or others that are authorizing agency group home T2016 or T2016 SC PAs will add the blended base rate. So as we know, T2016 and T2016 SC don't just have like a flat rate in the waiver chapter 3. So those PAs, even though they'll auto generate off of the PCP, the rate will be 0 blank. There won't be a rate in there. That will actually have to be populated by whoever it is that's entering the T26 or reviewing and approving the T2016, T2016 SCPAs right in this modal. Once you're happy with the content that's in the authorized services fields, then you can add your decision information. Next slide, please. The decision information section is right underneath of your authorized information section in this service details page. So you'll open that section up. As you can see, it's grayed out in the back here. I'd already actually entered the information. When I took this screenshot, it would have been blank when you first open this modal. And then you can just fill out your decision date. And if you require a supervisor review, this is where you would have to say, yes, a supervisor review is needed. If there is no supervisor review needed, you can answer the question no, and we'll skip that notification and need for the PA to be reviewed. So your decision options are approve, deny, cancel, or request clarification. Approve should be used for new or modified PAs if you're adjusting one that had been previously submitted to MIMS. Deny should only be used if you don't want to approve or submit the PA to MIMS. Cancel should only be used if you have already approved a PA that has not been submitted to MIMS and you want to prevent it from flowing over to MIMS. So same day, you could cancel. Or you can use the request clarification decision, which will trigger a notification to the assigned community case manager or care coordinator indicating that you need clarification before you approve. In this example, let's say you're wanting to approve the PA. So after selecting approve and adding your decision date, you would then need to indicate your supervisor review is needed or not. If you select yes, the PA will show up in the all prior authorizations query under pending supervisor review status. If not, it won't show up there. And then similarly to the PAs that are pending review under that query, supervisors should run that query daily to determine whether or not they need to review and approve any. Next slide, please. Once the decision has been set to approve and the decision section has been completely populated, including the supervisor review if needed. So if you had said yes, then the supervisor would need to review it and then put their date of their review and their name on that section as well. Then the status can be updated to submit. So from this service details page for this specific service line, after the authorization information and decision information sections have been completed, you can use the status dropdown, click on submit. This will set a flag for the PA in the database so that the nightly process will pick this PA up for the file that it creates to send to MIMS that evening, and it will go in that PA submittal file. Please note that if the decision was set to deny, the system will not flag that PA for inclusion in the nightly PA submittal file, and instead it will trigger a notification to the assigned community case manager or care coordinator, letting them know that the PA service line was denied, that the resource coordinator did not approve it and is not going to flow over. Once MIMS has received the nightly file and processed the nightly file, it will send back that PA return file, which will include the processing outcome for each service line. At which time, the next morning when you log in, you will see under this service details page for that specific service line, the MIMS response. So in my screenshots, you don't see anything there because our test environment is not connected to the MIMS system. So, and those jobs aren't running because we're not live yet. So you can't actually see it. But once we're live, the next morning, this MIMS response would update with the processing outcome. If the outcome was an error, it would also give the error ID and the error description here. Also, as mentioned earlier in the presentation, we will receive nightly updates from MIMS related to the PA utilization. So once a PA has been submitted over to MIMS and MIMS has processed it, then each day the utilization will also get updated. So it will apply the units used and then the units remaining, and it will update the date, letting you know when it was when that information was last updated. So again, I can't show it to you yet, but you'll be able to see that in Evergreen once we go live. Next slide, please. The MIMS processing outcome will be displayed in the MIMS response section of the service details page, and the system will trigger the appropriate corresponding notification. So if MIMS approved the service line, then it will send the assigned community case manager or care coordinator a notification letting them know that MIMS approved that PA service line. However, if it errors, then it's going to trigger a notification to you as the resource coordinator or the care monitor, letting you know that a service line errored. To get more information about the error, you can try to go find the PA, or you can come to your reports section, again, available from the persistent navigation, that white menu at the top. And under reports, you'll have access to a report that's called the PA error report. So you can run this again, because we're not connected to MIMS. I can't show you any example data. You can see there's no example data here, but when we're live, there will be. But you can run this report based on program section 21, 29, 18, 102, and by a specific organization. And it will show you all of the PAs that errored under those filter criteria. And you can export that data if you need to so that you can work to attempt to resolve whatever the error reason is before you try resubmitting that PA again. Next slide, please. I am once again going to attempt to steal the screen share here. Log back into our test environment. And show you around the PA form a little bit more. So I've navigated into this T2021 PA. So you can see here that the overview section gives me the prior authorization number, that it was under section 21, the service name, procedure code, modifiers. Nothing is populated here yet. Start date, end date, total authorized units, authorized cost. And it says inactive because this PA because we're in a test environment again, we weren't able to submit this and it hasn't gone over to MIMS for processing. All those fields will update once the service lines actually are submitted and flow over. And then it will update this information based on the aggregate of your service lines below. Again, we're in a test environment, so a lot of this is going to look really weird. So I apologize. We've just set up some of our test organizations to have like lots of contradictory information, just so that it's easier for us to test with. But generally, this will look a lot more normal for you in the production environment. But you'll have your provider's name, their NPI +3. Again, this one just happens to not have a +3 in our test environment, but in the actual production environment it will. Again, we don't have an address on this provider here, but in production we will. And again, this has like a lot of provider types, but in production it will have a waiver service provider. All of your providers that you're going to be authorizing services for will be set up as a waiver service provider. And under waiver service provider, they'll have an appropriate specialty. So that provider location may have MIMS specialty type of 174, which is brain injury waiver, 79, which is the IID waiver, 78. So 79 is section 21, 78 is section 29. Or it might also have 113, which is, oh, that might not be, sorry, I'm not sure. So this, again, in this example, we have some additional ones here, but it could also have section 102 as well, which I can't remember what the specialty type is for section 102. But it will show you which specialties they're actively enrolled in on the MIMS side as well. If it was generated off of the person-centered plan, it will have a source of person-centered plan here. If it's a PA that's going to have more than one service line, it will indicate the service line type of expanded here. It will tell you what date this was requested. So it's going to come off the PCP complete date here. And it's going to tell you the PA date range. Again, this date range will come from the PCP and it should be the full plan year. Right now in this test environment, there's a little bug. You can see it's not giving you the full service date range. It's just giving me the date range for the first line item, but it should be the full PA date range, which should align with the full person-centered plan date range. And again, these items here should also be totals. So again, it's giving me just the information from service line 1 in this example, but it should give me a frequency of 6 months, but it should have the units for both service lines added together here. And then again, on the total. And then again, because this is our test environment and there's some bugs in here, the rate is not showing up and the total requested cost is not showing up, but it should populate based off the service definition for whatever the rate is for T2021 UB. And then it should also give me the total cost for rate times whatever our units are here. But you can see in the service information section that I have both of my line items here. The first one is the 6 months from January 19th to July 18th. And then the second one is from July 19th to January 18th of 25. So you can see both of these say pending review, and there's no decision information in here yet. So you can click into each service line and you can expand all, and you can see again that this is telling me the service information from the previous screen, community membership, T2021. For whatever reason, again, in my test environment, it didn't give me my line item, my line number, but it will assign a line number. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I think it's because I have not authorized this yet. Once I do and I submit it, it will assign the line number, which will then show up over there. But you can see it's expanded because there were 2 lines. You can see the date request received, and you can see here that the PA information came over again, a little buggy. We don't have the rate in here. It normally would be in here, but I can use this little caret and it just magically copied and pasted all that for me rather than me having to click in here to edit and then add all that. But now if I wanted to edit that and I wanted to say, oh, I don't want to approve all these units, I only want to approve 1,200 units. And I'm just going to put a rate in here. Just, I don't know what the rate is for this service. So please don't take this as anything accurate here. But then it will multiply my units by the rate and give me my total cost here so I can see that. And then if I'm happy with that, I can add my decision information here. So again, I can say approve. If I needed to request clarification, I can. If I want to deny or cancel, it will automatically default to the decision date. But if I want to backdate that, I can. And then I can say whether state review is needed. If I say yes here, it's going to trigger that notification to your supervisor, Emily or Liz, or whoever the supervisor is, to do the review. So I'm just going to say no in this case. And then I go ahead and hit save, and it's saved my decision information. So effectively, this is ready now to submit. Of course, it's not going to work in this environment because I'm not connected to MIMS. So if I hit submit here, it's going to error because I'm not connected to MIMS. That's what this cryptic red error message is telling me. But this is a good example. So if you get a message that's this color, this is like this pinkish background with red text. This is an error. This means that the PA cannot move beyond until this error is resolved. And although this doesn't really explain it very well, what this is telling me is the system's not connected to MIMS, so I can't submit this. But you might also see these yellow messages here. So yellow messages are warnings. They're not going to prevent you from submitting the PA. They're just telling you, hey, there's a chance that this PA might get rejected, or sorry, it might error on the MIMS side because these things don't appear to be accurate over there. So the warnings are going to check against, again, the person's financial eligibility to see if they have active program classification. And it's also going to check against the provider enrollment as well to see if the provider is enrolled to provide that service for the date range that you're suggesting here. So you might be trying to authorize the service through July of 2024, July 18th of 2024, but the provider's enrollment might lapse before that. So it's going to tell you, hey, you can still submit this, but heads up. So yellow is just, again, to help you try to remedy things proactively, but you can still submit. But if you get a red message, you've got to resolve whatever your red message is telling you in order to be able to submit that across. But pretend that we were able to, oh, sorry, also while we're on warnings, just another thing, you may also receive another type of warning related to service limits. So we attempted to try to build in service warning limits based on waiver rule, waiver policy. So if there's a particular service or service mix that has like a cap or a maximum, we've been trying to implement those. Unfortunately, in our testing, we've hit some road bumps with that, but we didn't want to hold up the deploy for it because it's not functionality that currently exists in EIS, and it's not something that would prevent us from authorizing services. So we want to deploy, even though those service warnings are not accurate at this time. So if you see a service warning, just ignore it, like a service maximum warning or limit warning. Ignore those for now because they are not working correctly. Still track that information separately outside of Evergreen the way that you normally do right now for EIS to ensure that we're not over um, authorizing on services that have caps or maximums. But post deploy, we will continue to work with FEI to get those service limit warnings working correctly. And once we do, I will then let you guys know that you can start paying attention to those warnings because they will be accurate at that time. But it will take a little bit for us to get that finished and those working correctly. So the only warnings that you need to pay attention to are those yellow ones that are related to um, the person's financial eligibility or the provider's enrollment. And again, they won't prevent you from sending it over, but they'll warn you that when you send it over, there might be something that's going to cause that PA to error. So again, pretend that we were able to set this to submit, even though we can't. Then we would go back and we would do the same thing for this service line. And we would expand that one, and we would copy that one, and we would authorize that one. Again, you can, if you want to authorize the full units, you can. But if you wanted to make edits, you certainly can as well. And then you'd apply your decision information here. And then you would submit this one as well. And then in the nightly file, both of these would get picked up, which would then, so you can see here now that we've authorized those service lines, it has given us the start and end dates for this PA, the total authorized units, the total authorized cost, and it has, this is still inaccurate in the test environment, but it has set these to decision approved because we approved them. And if we had been able to submit them, it would change the status to pending MIMS processing or pending processing. And then in the nightly file, it would get picked up and sent over to MIMS. And then hopefully, if we've paid attention to our warnings and remedied anything, it would process without any trouble. And then the next morning when we logged in, we would then see the MIMS response here. And if it errored, we would see the error ID and the error description. And then as of the next day, if the provider had claimed any units, then you would see the utilization information update to show what units were used and how many remain. I think that is everything that I wanted to show you here in the PA form. So I'm going to stop sharing and give the screen back to Miranda. All right. So that concludes the presentation and the slides that I have for you. We do, as of next steps, we are still working with our vendor to determine our exact R3 deploy date, our revised deploy date. However, we hope to make a public announcement really soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. In the meantime, please continue to prepare for the upcoming deploy. It is right around the corner. And you can do that by practicing in the test environment if you have access to the test environment, or the sandbox if you've got access to that at this point. I know we are still working to try to get people into the sandbox training environment. We've been struggling with that. But some of you, I think, on the call have access to our test environment. So please feel free to continue to use that. Also head out to our website and rewatch whatever recordings, microlearning videos, pre-recorded webinars, read the frequently asked questions that are out there. We are also still working to update the frequently asked questions section of the project website and hope to be updating that again soon. But you can find all that information at maine.gov/dhhs/EIS/evergreen. And then there's also the training page, sub page, which you can navigate to get the recorded training sessions and micro learnings. You can also continue to tie up loose ends in EIS by finishing anything that's in progress that you can before we go live. And if you haven't already, encourage you to register to participate in one of the FEI-led Q&A sessions that will occur in early February. So I think there's 4 different 1-hour sessions. They are truly just a full hour of FEI and myself fielding questions from end users who have participated in their training sessions or reviewed the recordings and played around in their test or training environment and still have questions prior to the deploy. And again, at any time, if you have any any questions at all, or comments or feedback or whatever it might be, you can send that to our project website, project email address, which is evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. So next slide. So that does conclude the presentation. We do still have almost 45 minutes together, 43 minutes together. So if there are any questions, I certainly would be happy to try to field those now. I may call on Emily or Liz for support if there are questions that I don't have the answer to. But you can submit questions using the Q&A icon. I don't have any in there right now. So I'll give a couple minutes and see if anybody has any questions that they want to populate out in that Q&A. If not, I also do want to say thank you again as well to all of you for joining me bright and early on a Monday morning to learn about Evergreen and how the prior authorization process will work in the new system. It's very exciting, lots of changes, but I think positive changes for you guys, more visibility to data that is in the MIM system. So hopefully it'll make your lives a lot easier for reviewing PAs, troubleshooting, answering questions, supporting your community case managers and care coordinators, and understanding what's going on with the prior authorizations. I'm not seeing any questions coming in through the Q&A. I hope that's a good sign. I hope what I've shared has been helpful and that you have a better understanding of how we'll use Evergreen to authorize PAs. Looks like Emily has her hand up. Can you unmute Emily for me, Miranda?
Leslie, I don't want to extend the training if it makes sense to folks, but I was just curious. To me, when you went to queries to look at PAs, it made me wonder, I just want a clarification, maybe others did too. Would folks be able to see PAs that need review and action in their notifications as well? Because that's where I would look. That's what would be most intuitive. I just wasn't sure if there was a reason you went straight to queries to look at them.
So there are certain notifications that the system will send, and then there are certain times when you will not receive notifications and you will need to rely on your queries. So let me steal the screen share back from Miranda real quick here. And apologies as well, because again, in this test environment, I'm not sure if everything is working exactly correctly. So hopefully we don't have any stumbling blocks here, but you will be notified. So notifications that you will receive, will be when the PCP is set into state review. So during annual planning, or actually I guess anytime that a PCP gets created or edited, it will come, you'll get a notification every time the status has changed to state review. Sometimes you'll need to actually review and add the state review fields to the PA, and sometimes you'll just need to answer those questions and set the status to move it along because it's a section 13 or it doesn't have any waiver services. If there's a PCP that's revised and it's a change type and they're trying to change waiver services, then you'll get a notification that comes in like this. So you will receive notifications at the state review portion of PCP. you will not receive a notification when the PCP was set to complete and the PAs were auto-generated, because it would just be so many notifications because of every single PA that gets auto-created. So rather than getting a notification once the PCP is completed and the PAs are auto-generated, that's when I was saying you should go to your queries. So daily, at least daily, resource coordinators, care monitors, supervisors should come to queries. You might want to do it more frequently than once a day, but I would say at least daily. And you should go to this all prior authorizations query. And depending on your role, you'd want to select your appropriate service programs and then your status. So if you're a resource coordinator, you'd want to run this pending review. That would let you then see all of the prior authorizations that are pending review. If you're a supervisor, you might want to run the pending supervisor review, and then that will give you all of the prior authorizations. I don't know if there's any out here, yeah, that are requiring a supervisor review of the PA. And then from here, you'll need to then go into the PA from your query results and do your review. So sometimes you'll get notifications, but not always. So again, for like your PAs that are requiring authorization. So PCPs, you'll get notified. You need to go to the PCP review and do your state review piece. But PAs, you'll actually need to rely on your queries and or reports. So again, if it's, you will get a notification from MIMS if particular service line errors. So if you see a notification, again, I'm not going to have any in here because it's not connected to MIMS, but if you see a notification in here that's indicating that PA line item errored, you can navigate directly from your query in and see the error message there, or you could just have like a practice to come in and under your reports, run your oops. It's sorry, in a test environment, it's not in here, but I noticed it when I was preparing that it wasn't appropriately configured in here, but you would have a report here that said PA error report, and then you'd be able to click on it, and then you'd be able to put your filters in and run it. There's only 2 filters for that one, but you'd be able to enter your filters and then run it based on that screenshot that I showed. If you want to just daily see all the PAs that erred rather than going from notifications and navigating onesie twosie. Hopefully that answered your question, Emily.
Yeah, it did definitely.
I still don't see any other questions in the Q&A, but thank you, Emily, for that question. And if anybody does come up with any other questions that you might have after we conclude today, again, you can always email those to evergreen.dhhs@maine.gov. And Nancy Kitchen is helping me monitor that email box, and we will do our best to get back to you timely with a response on that. So seeing no other questions, I'm going to let you guys all take 36 minutes back in your morning. And again, thank you so much for joining me. And we look forward to supporting you when we get live in Evergreen.